Good evening. Hi, Naya. Glad you could make it. Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing this evening? Welcome to a special edition of Manny Behind the Mic. Something a little different. Let me turn that down a little bit. Tonight we have a special guest, Mr. Joshua Moroles. He is I'm going to call him an award-winning filmmaker, and he's made a few documentaries. First one, well, at least the first one that I know that he did, was there was an incident here in Brownsville right after the September 11th tragedy in New York, the terror attacks. That same week, Friday night, Saturday morning, there was an incident that knocked out part of the bridge that carries traffic from Port Isabel onto South Padre Island. And at first, I remember that night, I remember thinking, holy crap, are we being attacked here in South Texas? And then it turned out it was not that, it was something else. So we'll get into that as well. And then he, after that, created another film regarding artworks, and artists. They're called Conquista. And then from there, he is working on this one that's right up here. It's called Before We Drowned. And that highlights and discusses all of the shortcomings that the Rio Grande Valley has in reference to stormwater and drainage. And it's just a real big mess. We get a little bit of rain and things get really messed up. And it's always was a problem, but it's starting to become a bigger problem. So with that, let me bring up my guest and we'll get this thing going. Welcome, Joshua.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, great. I'm glad. A couple of weeks ago that one of my friends commented about your post about, hey, is there somewhere I can show the film? I think that's what you were looking for, right? You were looking for a cinema or something to...
Yeah, so part of the way it works is since I submitted it into film festivals, the festivals don't start till September. So having people wait till that long to release something is it takes forever. But unfortunately, that's the way I have to do it because it needs to go through the film festival circuit in order for it to build up that credibility.
So gotcha. Okay. So I typed in a comment. I said, "Hey, I'll stream it for you. We'll stream it on a platform," and that's when you explained all that right there.
Yeah.
And so is that? First of all, tell us a little about you. Where are you from? Are you from the Valley at all? I know you've done a couple things from down here.
Yeah. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, born and raised. I've been here all my life. I left to St. Louis for probably like 6 months, and
sorry to hear that.
That's where I first experienced racism. So
no, really,
it was like, all right, maybe I don't want to do that stuff. But I went out there for music because all my life I was a musician, and I played with my father in his country band and his rock band throughout the ages. And then I got into my own bands, and I just came back from Dubuque, Iowa this past weekend. The guys I play with, accolades, we play a film festival out there every year for about the past 10 years. We've been going out there for about 6 times throughout the past 10 years. And we get to play original music and some cover tunes for the people out there.
Okay. So you went to St. Louis, and when did you get into filmmaking? How did that start?
So filmmaking, I got into it. So back in 2016, I started a digital marketing agency with a buddy of mine, and he hired photographers and videographers, and I was always with him out in the field, right? So I learned a bunch of stuff, And then from there, I created my own digital agency. And about a year after that, I got pushed out of my agency and I went on my own. And I luckily I picked up the skills of filming, photography. That I still actually to this day work for a lot of businesses across the Rio Grande Valley. That's like my actual day job, because making documentaries, people think you make a lot of money. You make $0 with documentary filmmaking. So ask any filmmaker that's out there, you invest more than you actually you make, but it's fulfilling. But the opportunity came along to tell the collapse when Rob, which was the actual guy who helped the survivors that night, he approached me to do a podcast, and I kept on blowing him off for like 6 months. And he's like, "Hey, dude, look, just give me an hour of your time, and if you feel compelled with the story I'm about to tell you, then let's start a podcast." From the podcast, it went on to like I think 9 episodes where we got a bunch of people from the actual experience talking about it. We got boat captains, we got people that survived. Gustavo, we had him. That was one of the survivors that went off 85 feet into the ground, into the ocean. I mean, so we through that whole thing, I learned a lot about the documentary, like how to create the documentary. I didn't know how to put together a documentary per se, right? But I had all the information, all the pieces that I needed to put it together. So I had the story. And then from there, we were looking for somebody to make a film about it. And we found out that it takes money to do all that stuff. So we had $0 to invest in something like that. And I told Rob, I was like, dude, let's just make it ourselves. Like, we're going to sit here for the next year, hoping that we're going to get a yes from somebody. And let's see what ourselves. Is it coming out shitty? Well, who cares? Like, we actually, we did it ourselves. Just put our stamp on it, and we get to tell the story. And if people only see it through YouTube, fine, whatever. We ended up filming it, and we filmed it pretty well. Like, for our first documentary, it came out pretty decent, right? Like, if you have documentary filmmakers, they'll probably look down on it, but that's where I found out that the story is what matters. It doesn't matter how good you film. It doesn't matter how crappy. It doesn't matter what camera you use. It's the story. The story is what compels people to watch and stay in for it. I believe that one was an hour and 15 minutes. So,
and if people want to watch that, they can go to YouTube. Is that correct? Right? Yeah. It's called a Collapse, it's real story.
Collapse, the true story of the Queen Isabella Causeway collapse. Right. Yeah, that's what it is. So it's on
YouTube. So if you guys want to go and check it out after this, feel free to do so there.
Yeah, and I was surprising because it won 16 Best Feature awards from around the globe, not just from the United States, from around the globe. So it's one of the most compelling stories that you'll never hear ever again. And the crazy part is it's true. Like all the stories that I have told through these documentaries are 100% true and factual.
Yeah, and when I saw it, I was listening to that first testimony of those fishermen that were down there. And I don't think they're professional fishermen, right? These guys were just regular guys. Like, hey, let's go fish tonight.
It was Rob and 2 of his cousins, a friend. So they were they're getting away from the wives. Like if you were to hang out with some buddies one night and you just wanted to get out and go fishing, that's exactly what they did.
So doing that documentary, I don't know if you remember, where were you that night, like when it happened?
That night, I don't remember. I remember 9/11 when it happened, because I was on the way to work with my dad. I remember that vividly in the morning, hearing it on the radio. And I remember Big Al and Charlie were on the radio. They were talking about the collapse. I mean, the Twin Towers collapsing. And that's where I remember. I don't remember ever hearing about the collapse at the Queen Isabella.
Okay, so you didn't get this news until
I didn't.
Way later.
Yeah, I had heard about it years after, but I never really dove into the.
Yeah, well, down here we heard of it. Something happened, and of course, everybody was still on edge over September 11th, which happened just a few days.
Yeah,
everybody thought, "Holy crap, are we under attack? Are we getting attacked here in South Texas?"
Yeah, interestingly enough, people still think, when I was doing interviews out there, they still thought that they were getting attacked by terrorists. It's the strangest thing in the world.
Yeah. Now, then you look into it. Obviously, the investigation happened, and it turned out to be a barge that just went off the path just because there was no lighting underneath there, or
Yeah, it was a towboat pushing two barges, and it hit one of the pillars, and it collapsed one of the pillars, and it was pitch dark because the lighting on top did not work, and it hadn't worked for like about a week.
Hmm.
So it was, you couldn't see anything. You didn't know anything. No, I think one of the most vivid pictures that stuck in my mind from that was when it was telling me it was pitch black out there, and one of the biggest electric lines is, just picture it like it's probably like this big,
Right.
severed in half, and it would whip into the ground, and every time it would hit the water, it would shoot up a huge, massive spark, and you'd be able to see the cars that were down there and the people that were in there. It was one of the most disheartening things to hear about that. It was a very, very vivid memory from what I recall from his stories.
And how much of a section actually disappeared, fell
So
down?
if you drive on it, you'll be able to feel the section where it's different. I'm going out there this weekend, and if anybody goes to the island, there's I believe 200,000 people that go travel over that bridge every year, and it's expired. I don't think people really understand that. We got a boat with Captain Redbeard. I remember Captain Redbeard.
Hmm.
There was a section in there that says "Do not enter," and he's like, "Do you guys want to go in there?" And I was like, "Yes." So drove us in there. I had my camera, and he was showing us all the parts that were getting repaired. So you see the rebar that it exposed. So if you expose rebar to ocean water, it expands and it cracks the concrete. Oh,
Yeah.
that bridge is expired. It had been expired 40 years. It's been expired for 40 years. It's yeah, yeah.
That's not good to know.
It's interesting fact.
So, as I was watching this, I mean, obviously, I knew what
Sorry,
happened.
I'm sorry. It has a lifespan of the 40 years, so it's been
Oh, okay,
past
okay.
that for I think the past 6-7 years it's been expired.
Okay, so it's just barely, well, not barely, but that's a
Yeah.
long time to be expired.
Yes.
So, and this was at the bridge's highest point, right?
Highest point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was trying to imagine what that's like. You're driving along, and then the road in front of you disappears, and you don't have no reaction time. You can't react. I mean, you don't have enough time. Maybe you hit the brakes, but
Yeah, I think
I can
Gustavo
imagine.
was one of the survivors. Gustavo Morales. He said that it took about a little over 2 seconds to hit the ground.
Yeah, and what height was that? You said
I believe it was 85 feet.
85 feet. So it's roughly 2 stories, 2.5 stories, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And so, in a nutshell, not to spoil it for anybody, but it's been many years. Who was responsible? Did they find anyone ultimately responsible for that?
So apparently, we never got down to exactly who and the problem, like who did it. But the guy that was pushing, I mean, the guy that was driving the boats, apparently he had a blood level alcohol of a
Yeah.
higher level than it was supposed to be. And they just, I remember them talking about the captain was asleep. So it was a mixture of things. But then also, you got to think about that night the storms were coming in, so it pushed the barge ever so slightly over, and it pushed it
Mm,
out of its path. And it was dark that night, so they couldn't see.
yeah.
So it was just it was a cluster of things that had to have happened in order for something catastrophic like that to happen, and all those things lined up perfectly for that catastrophe.
And what was the final loss of life? Was it seven people?
It was nine.
9 people.
9 people died.
And how many of those that went in the water survived?
Three survivors.
3 survived. Man, that's I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
Can't
it's
even
tragic.
imagine. Was it how was it when you were talking with the witness, those that actually uh, that were involved, including the fishermen, but those that survived? How are they doing? I mean, talking about this, years later.
You can imagine that they still remember it like it was yesterday. It's burned into their memories. They suffer with it still to this day.
Yeah.
Even Rob like still suffers to it. He remembers the smell of gas like that. That'll trigger him. Like I remember talking to Gustavo, and he talks about driving over the bridge like the few weeks after because he needed to get it over with. Like he needed to do that as soon as the bridge got repaired. He went over it. But yeah, they still carry the memory. It's a very vivid memory for them, and they remember it all.
Yeah. What was it? What was it exactly that prompted you to or take that story and maybe do something with it
It
to
was
make it?
the way Rob has a very good storytelling voice. So when you hear him on an actual documentary, his voice pulls you in. He's a good storyteller. So it was a story that pulled me in first, and then all of the things that happened during that story are unbelievable. It's just
Yeah.
it's something that you'll never hear again. It's literally made for Hollywood.
See if I can pull that up real quick, and that's on.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. And interesting thing too is it got. I don't know if you all know who Javier Chapa is. He made a few films that went up to Netflix, like number one. I think Blue Miracle, a few of those things. They got in touch with Rob, and Rob sold his life rights to them, so they're supposed to make the Collapse into an actual full feature film.
Oh,
And
is that right?
it's supposed to come out in 2026. So I'm looking forward to seeing that on the big screen.
And you're just can play that there in the background there.
Yeah, that's Rob right there.
So he tells a story. What happened? He was a fisherman, one of the guys on the boat.
Yes.
Right on boat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, they tell the story of what happened that evening.
Yep.
And it was I had never heard it the way it was portrayed there. I was kind of in shock over the whole thing.
It's one of those stories that a lot of people think they know and they heard things from somebody, but they never heard the actual truth, like of what really happened. Because you got to think about, like, everybody that was watching from the side, they have their own story that they told.
Yeah.
But this is Rob's story that he told from the survivor part, where he actually was on ground that night, helped the survivors, interacted with the Navy, the Coast Guard, like he was in it. So he told the story very vividly.
So you do the movie, and how long does the whole thing take you? You said it was going to take us a year to wait for somebody to maybe fund you. Once you got to work on it, how long was it before you put it out?
I think this we were working on for 45 days. This time I had already known the story very intimately. So I think we were doing research for about a year and a half, and all the podcasts, we were doing it for a year and a half. And then we found that the film festivals were coming up, and it was only like 45 days away. So I was like, hey, Rob, we need to film this fast, dude. Like, whatever we have, we're just going to submit. And we ended up, everything ended up lining up. It's strange how that works. Like, when you put a deadline on something, everything seems to work, and it works really well. It took about 45 days to shoot, film, get all the graphics, get all the stuff that we needed specifically to tell the story.
And apparently it was, well, before we get to that, one other part I wanted to get to was bothersome to me was the Coast Guard reaction.
Yes.
When they were called or on the radio, if you can touch on that for a little bit, because I was extremely bothered by what I heard there about their reaction.
So not to spoil it too much, but when the Coast Guard finally got there, they were, I guess, from what the reporter was saying, that they were in a state of shock, or they were just young. These were young guys. So you got to think about 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old men that had never seen anything like this. I mean, you're at the island. Whatever happens here at the island, right?
Right.
So they're not trained for specific things like that. Now, but if you ask the Coast Guard, because I've gotten a lot of heat from Coast Guard about this, that live on the island, that they have a different story, of course, which is fine. They have a different story of what happened, but this is the story that I know that has been told to me from first accounts, right?
Yeah.
So from what I heard, is that they were in a state of shock, or in a state of panic. They weren't trained for stuff like this, so their initial reaction was like, "Yeah, well, okay, fine. Let's do this first, and then we'll deal with what we have to deal with."
Yeah, here we're just watching some of that.
Yeah, that's the bridge right there that is expired.
Yeah, you don't realize how big the structure is until you're actually right there underneath it.
Yeah, it's a massive structure.
So, okay, this film comes out. It's very well received, and it does very well. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And the next film you made, was it Conquista?
Conquista, yes. Conquista is
Yeah.
about an artist that's from Alamo. He went to the University of Houston, and in to get his art degree. And in Houston, he was there for a few years getting his art degree, and he wanted to make a name for himself. So he went up to one of the most beloved museums in Houston, which is called the Manil. I'm not sure if people have been there, but it's a small. Well, I wouldn't say small. It's a medium sized museum in the heart of Houston, surrounded by a bunch of neighborhoods, and in there's about 35 guards. That when I went to go film, there was about 35 guards. When he was there, he said there was probably about 40. Well, this guy went up to a $78 million Pablo Picasso, spray painted his logo over it, walked out, fled the country for 6 months, and then served 2 years in jail. So that's the story that we told.
Hey,
Yeah, it's an interesting story because there's art. Like this, I was never into art like at all. I barely got into all this art that's behind me through Conquista, and had an appreciation for it. But I was never like art. Like who's it's like stupid? It's like whatever. Right? I can
yeah,
do that. But
right.
there's a certain thing about performance art. There's a certain thing about art that it does have a message. It does have a meaning to it, and it's always debatable, I guess, who will pay the most for it, and that's how it becomes what it's worth, right?
Like they say, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
For
So
sure.
if some guy says, you know what, I'll pay 100 grand for that. I want that in my house. Yeah,
And the
yeah,
interesting part too is that once you pay that 100 grand, that's the floor for all the other art. Like you cannot sell anything else cheaper, so it becomes that floor.
yes, becomes a standard. Yeah, exactly. So how long did that process? Did they ever was able to restore the painting?
Yeah, so he knew that they'd be able to restore it because the paint that he used can easily come off, but it was the act that was the performance art.
Oh, I see, I see. So he wasn't doing it like a well, I mean, it was deliberate, but it wasn't a
Yeah.
permanent damage, I guess.
Yes.
So
So
he
that
knew
that
what he
whole
did.
process probably took about a year and a half, a year and 7 months to complete the project.
Because you see all these acts of I call it vandalism,
Yeah.
where they vandalize these pieces of art and paintings or statues,
Yeah.
and you think about why is this so easy to do? It's the public is right there.
Hmm.
Sometimes I think it's like a what do you call it, a replica piece maybe that they have out there instead of showing the act one, or it's behind a special some kind of protection or something. But a
Yeah.
lot of it isn't. A lot
Yeah.
of it is.
It's the legit thing. I went back when I was filming again, and I saw the actual Picasso that he spray painted over. It's restored, and right there you can walk right up to it. And
Yeah,
it's a surreal experience because I remember walking in and seeing all the guards. It's like, how did this guy do this, man? This is
yeah,
insane. Like I literally saw all the guards, and if you step too close to something, like sir, you need to step back.
yeah.
So they're always watching. It's an interesting thing. That movie hasn't come out. Well, it has already done its film festival circuit. I'll probably release it here in the next couple of weeks before this other movie comes out. So
Is that going to be on YouTube as well?
yes, it'll be on YouTube as well. So I'll share it with you. Share it with your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So you spent some time with Conquista, and then how do you hear about the problem we're having down here with
Ooh.
flooding?
So that's I was in Houston. I took my daughter to a dance competition, and March 27th is when the storm started coming in here into Harlingen and Brownsville. And I was on Facebook because you're sitting there. I'm a dad, and my daughter's dancing, and my wife's there, and my kids there. I'm literally sitting there doing nothing. It drives me crazy, crazy doing nothing. So I'm usually working, doing something, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at everybody, and they're going through all this chaos. I'm like, man, I'm sitting here, I'm doing nothing. Like, I got to do something. So I started writing a story, a fictional story about a flood that comes in and it devours everybody and it kills a lot of people and stuff like that. I was like, why am I wasting my time on this? I can make like my next documentary, because it took me about 2 years to figure out what I want to do next. There was just nothing that was coming to me that I wanted to do. Like it was everything was uninteresting to me. Like people kept pitching me stuff, and I was like, I don't want to do that. If I'm not invested in it, I won't give it my all. And when I had given my all, I had kind of have like OCD on it, so I have to dive in deeply, and I keep on digging. I can't get it out of my head. So that's what happened with this project. That's how I knew it was going to be a good project for me, because it piqued my interest, and it kept piquing my interest. And when I was over there, I started reaching out to a couple of people that said that their houses were getting flooded. And I was like, well, how many times have your house gotten flooded before? It's like, this is like the third time. This is the second time. This is the fourth time. I was like, really? And then I was like, oh, okay. So I kept following people. And when I got back, I reached out to a couple of people about starting the documentary. And I just reached out to everybody like that got flooded. It's like, hey, can I record your story? Can I record your testimony? Because usually you'll find some gems and some stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept digging and digging, and then people kept connecting me with other people, and that's when I got to meet JV, which is a civil engineer from Harlingen. And he was telling me he I knew that he knew the story very well because of the way he articulated a lot of the stuff that was going on. He knew the infrastructure. He's a civil engineer. He knows exactly what's going on. He knew the history. He knows the future that's going to happen again. So the infrastructure and all that. And then I got in touch with a commissioner from over there that also corroborated the story as well. And I got in touch with more people through JV that had even more compelling stories. So I knew I was onto something. And then I thought I was making a story about a flood. Like, yeah, it's going to flood again. And I started researching Hurricane Beulah, which happened in 1967.
Mm-hmm.
1967, Hurricane Beulah flew in with 150 tornadoes and massive amounts of rain. If you remember pictures back that you see, like they were flooded. Like it was the most insane thing that I've seen. And I started researching like how many of these storms and hurricanes come in, how many of these floods have we had here in the valley, and they're numerous. Like it happens often.
Yeah.
And I realized that our infrastructure was so bad and so outdated. So I started looking into it. And then I remembered something that JV and the commissioner were talking about, that the sewage water comes up. And I didn't think anything of it, but the sewage water comes up from the Arroyo when it overflows. So the Arroyo
Right.
spans from Mission, Texas, all the way out to South Padre Island. It's a 90-mile stretch. And I didn't understand that does not flow naturally anymore. 70 years ago, that stopped flowing naturally. So the way it flows now is through wastewater. It's literally wastewater from Mission and every city in between Mission, all the way to South Padre Island, all the way from all the cities go into that arroyo, and that's the only way it pushes out into the onto the island, South
Right.
Padre Island. So I was like, all right, that's kind of gross, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of nasty, but I assume like, yeah, you have to have something that pushes out the water, the wastewater into the ocean. Fine, right? And then I started researching. I found documentation on what's inside the arroyo, and that's where the compelling part was. Like, okay, I thought there were some chemicals and stuff like that. Well, no, we have two of the most polluted per chemical. So we have two of the most polluted river systems in the United States as far as the amount of chemicals that are in them. So
Mm.
there's arsenic. There's a ton of PCBs, DDT, things that are pesticides that are banned, that are still being used to this day, that are known and proven to cause cancer. So I was like, okay, well, that's fine, like as long as it stays there. But it doesn't stay there.
Wow.
Every time it floods, that Arroyo River pushes up the sewage, and then the water from the Arroyo mixes in with that sewage water. So now you have contaminants, toxins, chemicals, banned pesticides that are going into neighborhoods, in schools, and they're staying there. So these things don't die. They don't die off. I believe the scientists told me that the way they classify these chemicals is like nuclear waste. They don't ever go away. They have a half life, but when they turn into something different or they die away, they usually turn into something more or as equally devastating. So these chemicals do not go away. They saturate the ground, they saturate the walls, they go into the air, they turn into mold. The spores end up with the bacteria that go into the air. So we're literally surrounded by filth that has gotten to every piece of the Rio Grande Valley, and it's daunting because I think when I share this stuff, people think I'm like I'm full of shit, but like I have studies that are undeniable.
I mean,
Like,
DDT wasn't that banned in the 70s? 70s?
yeah, it's insane that these things are still here, like, and they're stuck in the walls. Like the whole thing that happened in Edinburgh with the Canterbury school, like their kitchen got exposed. So the sewer water came up with the floods back in March in 27,
Mm.
and all that stuff stayed in the school. So they had an E. coli breakout, and now I think they closed down the school like yesterday. So it's a huge thing that's going on, and I don't think people really understand the severity of what's going on. And I'm not saying this stuff, and I'm not putting out the stuff that I'm putting to scare people, but
Yeah.
just to make them aware of like what's going on. And I started asking the questions like, why does the Rio Grande Valley have so many sick people? Like, have you ever thought that?
It's crossed my mind, like, what's
And
going
you,
on down here,
you
you know?
think you think you know something, right? Like you have a
Yeah.
suspicion, but it's never been like proven or anything because nobody ever talks about it. But then I started researching more, and I pulled up all these studies, and it literally shows like it's the Arroyo and the Rio Grande River when they flood. All those toxins, all those chemicals go into the Rio Grande Valley because in the Rio Grande Valley, and this is another study that I sent you with the sources through email, that 85,000 homes in the Rio Grande Valley and 300 schools are within that floodplain within the Rio Grande Valley. So every time it floods, all that stuff gets pushed into the neighborhoods, into the
Mm.
homes, into the schools, into the farms where they grow the food and that we eat. It goes into the air. We're exposed to it. And I
Yep.
don't
And this is every time it rains,
every time it
consider
rains,
it
it
like that.
does it. I don't want to sound like a fanatic. I don't want to sound like one of those weirdos, like yeah, because I've seen those guys. They're
No,
weirdos, man. Trust me. But
I
there's
get it. I get it.
something bigger going on here that nobody ever talks about, and literally the studies are showing it.
That's insane. So here you are, and I commend you on your fast work because this thing just happened March 27th.
Yeah.
How far along are you with your film?
Oh, it's done. I finished it in I think it was 25 days. So a few years ago, I first got access to AI, and I was using it ever since November 2022. I got access to AI, and I was using it for 2 or 3 hours a day. And I remember it specifically sending me a message saying, "Go outside, take a break, go breathe some air." Right? And it was a weird experience, but I got right back to work because it fascinates me. Like I told you earlier, when I get into something, I have OCD and I cannot get it out of my head, so I have to
Sure.
keep going. And I used AI for a lot of the stuff as far as research, even some of the voiceovers in the film because I use it for business as well, right? For my clients too. So I got very familiar with it, and I was able to cut down the research time, the filming time, the narration time by probably like 50%. So I was
Mm.
able to make the documentary in 25 days because I knew exactly the story I wanted to tell once I found out the information. I mean, I can add more to it,
Mm.
but if I keep adding, then I'm going to keep going, and it's never going to be a finished product. So I just need it to
Yeah.
get out and do what it's going to do. That way it can raise awareness for what it needs to raise awareness for.
So you start doing the research, you start digging. That means you got to start talking to people, asking questions. What kind of reception did you get from those you were trying to get information from? Like, where is
Uh,
this coming from, or why is this happening?
they were very open about talking about everything. I think I talked to one girl that she told me to take all her images and take all her stuff off of social media because she said that what I was doing was misleading. And I was like, no, like here, like let me show you the facts, like.
Yeah.
And so I don't blame her. She's one of the flood survivors, and she didn't want anything to do with it. Was I respect that as a documentary filmmaker. I mean, you can't have everything, right? So I figured out a way around it. I just and I was able to tell the story in a factual and compelling way that I think will have an impact.
Yeah. Have you showed the film to anyone that?
I've showed it to a couple of press because they want to write some articles on it, but I really haven't showed it to anybody. It's in the film festival, so if it gets leaked or anything like that, it could get disqualified for a technicality.
Mm,
Uh, that's the only thing I'm worried about because I have to have it go through the film festival for it to have that credibility. Because then people are like,
or-
it's just another film on YouTube. Forget that guy. Like he's nobody, right?
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
and that's the thing is I'm sharing it with a very select few people, but I am going to have some private shows coming up pretty soon. So I'll keep your audience updated when they can check it out.
Yeah. If you have any down here or near here, yeah, please let me know because I think people will be interested to hear this.
Yeah.
And
And it offers the opportunity because JV is going to be there as well. It offers the opportunity for people to ask questions about what's going on, and it offers me the opportunity to talk about what's going on because that's why I love these podcasts. I commend you for being a podcaster, man, because it does have a profound effect on the community because you can reach the local audience. Like I did a
yeah,
podcast for a lot of years, and it's a lot of work. Like so, I commend you for that, man. It's
yeah,
work, but it reaches your audience locally, and that's the important part is like that local audience that you share. Like we look like each other, we talk like each other. Like this is who we are. We're from the Rio Grande Valley. Like that's important.
yeah. And this story, I mean, you're just a few minutes of you telling us that there's all these chemicals and all of these that are floating around after every rain,
Yeah,
and then affecting. I mean, not just you're not watching just a stream go by in one of the resakas or anything, but
yeah. These chemicals
getting into the crops, yeah, into the fields and
they don't go away.
soaking into everything.
It's in the air. I was looking at something earlier too, which I stumbled upon more stuff. This is like, it's kind of annoying because these things don't go away. But I saw a report, and if you go to rgvhealthconnect.org, there's recognized carcinogens released into the air now. So my mom was telling me, like, well, don't we have great air quality and all this stuff? I was like, no, in fact, we do not. So if you go to rgvhealthconnect.org, Cameron County released over 32,000 pounds of airborne carcinogens in 2023, and that's up from 13,659 pounds in the previous year. So these are OSHA classified carcinogens in our air. So not only are we exposed to the water that's coming up, the water that's coming out of our faucets, the water that's in our homes, the flood water,
Mhm.
the air quality is released with these carcinogens. And you think like, why are there so many sick people in the valley? This is why. And for a peon like me to stumble upon these things, I mean, I can put
Yeah, I mean, you found all this out in a matter of a month or something,
with the help of AI, I will add, but the fact that is I'm able to look through all that stuff quickly and efficiently and factually and double check the sources and triple check the sources because the last thing I hate is when people tell me I'm wrong.
Oh
So
yeah,
I have to be factually correct. I have to offer sources. And as if you're trying to be a documentary filmmaker, you have to be right. You can't
right,
put out crap. You can't put out false stuff because then people will discredit you.
right.
So that's my thing is like it's this something's bigger going on in the valley that nobody's talking about. And I don't understand why.
Yeah, nobody's talking about it. I mean, this is the first time I hear about any kind of dangerous, not to mention banned chemicals that are still in our system and going around. Did you get to find out what kind of illnesses are out there? People are getting sick. Did they ever talk to you about what's common that could be a reason that people are getting sick with something because of that or because of this?
Sure. So I've been posting a lot annoyingly on Facebook, and a lot of the stuff I've been using headlines. So leukemia here in the Rio Grande Valley, we're 30% higher than we have 30% higher leukemia cases here in the Rio Grande Valley than the rest of Texas and the rest of the United States.
Well,
Respiratory diseases, cancers. You're talking about there's so many diseases that we get here in the Rio Grande Valley that are directly associated with all of the chemicals that are in the arroyo and dumped into the Rio Grande River. It's quite astonishing. I mean, even autism is linked to the things that are in that river.
hmm.
It's an interesting thing because you look at it and like the list keeps coming back, like cancer, cervical cancer, you get leukemia, you have respiratory disease, you have heart disease, you have diabetes, all these diseases that are somehow associated with the chemicals that are in the arroyo, from the PCBs, the DDT, all these things, these chemicals that can cause that
Yeah.
are prevalent here in the Rio Grande Valley.
Which is going to be in the fish that people go out there and fish and they eat the fish.
That too, but also they are exposed to it because think about too when the floodwaters come up, all that water goes into the homes, it goes into the neighborhoods, and that water stays stuck into the sheet wall. It goes evaporates into your systems. Like if you have old pipes, it stays into the pipes. Like all that stuff that you're exposed to over the years, over and over and over again,
Mm.
you're being exposed to that stuff. If you're from the Rio Grande Valley, you have something in you that should not be there. And the way the scientist that I interviewed on the podcast explained it to me is that your body does very well at walling off these certain things, or it'll push them aside. But when
Mm.
your body gets too weak, or your immune system goes down, or you get too old, that wall breaks and then it releases that chemical into your body that turns into cancer, that turns into something, a heart disease or respiratory disease or asthma. Like also, you think about, we have the highest rate of children's asthma in the Rio Grande Valley than anywhere else in Texas and the United States. It's because the air quality is so bad.
Unbelievable.
And it's weird for me telling you that, or telling your audience that, because like it seems like it's unbelievable. Like, yeah, whatever, we go out, we go to work every single day, we do our regular stuff, we go out, we hang out, we go to the island, but you can't see these things.
And you're at the island and you think, oh man, I'm getting all this fresh air and it's all clean and I'm in the water and it's clean and
I'm sure at the island it has to be a little bit better because the sand, the salt. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I just know what I researched, but
yeah.
it's quite daunting. And every single day, like Nadia is posting on here, you're well, she's posting about the 3-month-old leukemia baby. I get messages like that every single day about people that have lost somebody to cancer. Like it's crazy how many people have cancer here in the Rio Grande Valley,
Yeah.
or some form of it.
And if somebody wants to follow you on Facebook, it's just under your name. Is that correct? Joshua Moroles?
Moroles.
Yeah. So we got a video clip to play, a little excerpt from the film, right?
Yes.
I think let's go ahead and do that right now.
All right.
Hang on a second.
Let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead.
There we go.
Sanitary sewer system to flood as well, because now you inundate all the pump systems. Just look at the news. The TCEQ, Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, is doing an investigation right now into Harlingen Waterworks because partial untreated discharge was thrown into the Arroyo Colorado, and now it's affecting our wildlife, our water quality. So they're doing a massive investigation in Harlingen and in Alamo because of untreated sewage water that was released during this flood.
And yes, even now, the Arroyo Colorado remains officially listed as an impaired water body. The latest 303D report from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality confirms what we feared. This river is still too polluted to meet basic water quality standards. Year after year, the flow depends on wastewater discharges just to stay alive. The danger isn't over, it's ongoing. The Arroyo remains a toxic artery, carrying contamination straight into our communities. And if the floods come again, it will drag all of it through our homes, our streets, and our lives.
People are going to the hospital right now from Green Valley Farms area in San Benito because this flesh-eating bacteria. There's E. coli in here because it's untreated sewage. So all of this flood water, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is basically septic system water that you're walking in. So don't go splashing around in it, because that stuff gets in your mouth. You're going to get sick. You're going to get E. coli. E. coli causes really, really bad issues with your immune system and with your body, and so it's just really gross sewage water.
Many of these folks behind me love to live here because they can have pets, they can have animals, they can have horses, they can have sheep, they can have goats, they can have chickens. Well, guess what happened to most of these animals? If these guys were not fortunate enough to have a friend or someone to help them quickly move them out, they're floating along with the septic with the water. They're disintegrating and decomposing right behind us. You know, there's no way to get to them. There's cows, you name it, they're out there floating around.
The Arroyo Colorado remains one of the most contaminated waterways.
Holy crap.
It's insane, man. Like the things that people are still dealing with to this day. Like they still have sitting water over there, and we're about to get rain tomorrow night or tonight.
Yeah.
Get like 10 inches of rain in Harlingen tomorrow night. Like,
were you going to show more, or did we just take it down already?
Yeah, that's all I wanted.
Okay.
But the rest you see there, like those are feasibility studies that I referenced specifically in the documentary. So there's about, I think, 8 or 9 different sources that I talk about in the documentary that give it the validity, from documents, from people's research about this, from doctors, scientists, to actual studies, feasibility studies done by the government. Like this is information that's out there that nobody was able to decipher and put together and say, like, this is what's going on here. And interestingly enough, I did the petition. I talked to you about the petition that I first put out, and it was just about like getting declaration for, hey, like our oil is pretty bad. Like, get some eyeballs on here and get some new studies, because nothing's been done since like 2013. New studies, right? So that's what it first came out to, and I kept on researching more and researching more and researching more. And then I stumbled across an article about the UN, about how they define human rights violations. So everything that we have in the Rio Grande Valley, from colonias to sicknesses to the diseases, the high rates of leukemia, cancers, the chemicals that are in the ground, the foods that we eat, the air that we breathe, all of that criteria hits the criteria for what the UN says is violation of human rights. So I upgraded the petition as a human rights violation, because I don't think people really understand what is going on here in the valley. Like, for you to say that we have a human rights violation is kind of a big thing. I don't think people really understand that. Like, you hear human rights violation, but I don't think people really understand the significance of human rights violation, because everybody in the Rio Grande Valley, all 1.2 million people are affected by what's in the air, what's in the water every time it floods. Everybody.
Yeah, these are the kind of things, you hear, like we're talking about a third world country.
Yeah.
I mean, This is shocking.
And you wouldn't think that, because we're from the Rio Grande Valley. You never see it. You never see the colonias. You never see the poverty. I work with a nonprofit that we serve underprivileged people, right? So we see that stuff all the time. But if you go out far enough from the main roads, you'll see the people that are suffering, and they're out there. Those are the ones that first get flooded.
Wow, I'm in shock. Now, you did send me a bunch of. Let's see, we're going to do a couple of things here.
Yeah.
You sent me a whole bunch of studies,
Mm-hmm.
which what I'm going to do, I decided I want to do, take a couple days and post a lot of information and post all these studies so everybody can look them up at their leisure time when they want.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is you talked about this petition. You put that up here so people can go to it. And this is what you were talking about, is that correct?
Yes, that's the updated one. Right now we have 607 signatures. I need 1,000 signatures to be able to get it officially recognized. There are steps that you have to go through to. You can't just go to your city and say, "Hey, we have a problem. Like here's the data," like that. You have to formally put. You have to put this petition out, and then from there you get 1,000 signatures. The 1,000 signature. The point of that is because it carries enough weight to be able to say 1,000 people are backing this from our community that are saying that this is a problem. So at that point, they have to listen. And with signatures now, I can get media coverage talking about the problem that we're having here because I'm just one person, right? I'm one guy, and I'm sharing these. I'm coming onto podcasts to try to get the message out because I don't want my children to be growing up in this. Like they're already exposed. My children are exposed to this. Like we're exposed to this. But if
Yeah.
we now, our children's children will be able to have an opportunity to have a clean RGV, and it's going to take about 10 to 15 years for the mess that we all did to get cleaned up. But if we start today, it'll take 10 to 15 years.
And that's a long time. I mean, I know things can't happen fast when it comes to the environment, bureaucracy, and any things that can get in the way.
That's why I had upgraded it to the human rights violation because that gives it a whole different level of like urgency. Like that, all these pictures are from the documentary from the people that I met that are they're walking in filth. That's sewer water that has been mixed in with floodwaters from the arroyo that flow out into South Padre Island.
And the reality is, in a lot of these neighborhoods that are flooded, the kids will go out and play in the water,
Yeah,
like it's a pool,
yeah, it's not knowingly too. It's
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sad part. And yeah, Annette's talking about the citizens that come over from Mexico too. Is like you think about we have the binational population of the Rio Grande Valley, so we have 1.2 million people here in the Rio Grande Valley. I think 1.4 million people cross over every single year. So they're affected by the Rio Grande Valley River. We're affected by Arroyo, and then when they both spill over, we get the best of both worlds.
Hmm. I'm gonna see if that whole link fits in here. 'Cause I'm gonna put it in the comments. If you guys would go to the link, I would urge you to sign the petition because this is
Yeah, I urge you to because it is the faster we can get this to the 1,000 signatures, the faster it can get to where it needs to be because you know how people are, they forget a week later, right? So it's just something that has to be done because I know at some point somebody's going to come to me and tell me to stop talking about this. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I might decide to stop talking about it. So I don't know. But the faster it gets to 1,000 people, the faster this spreads to everybody. It has an opportunity. We have an opportunity to be able to clean up the mess that we made.
guys. I put the link on my page. I posted my page. You can go to Manny Behind the Mic on Facebook, and it's right there.
And like I said, I don't want to instill fear because, and then this is the other thing too, is like people commenting on my posts, like, no, we're going to move from the valley. It's like, that's not the point of this. Like the point is like, let's clean up our area because the Rio Grande Valley is special. Like this is where all my family is. This is where all my friends, this is where I go out and hang out with restaurants and people that I know. Like this is our home. We need to do something about it to fix the problem for our children's children.
Yeah, I'm going to read a couple of these key findings. I know you mentioned a lot of it already.
Yeah.
The contamination of the Arroyo Colorado. The Arroyo Colorado has been found to contain legacy pollutants. Legacy pollutants means these are banned chemicals. Is that right?
Correct.
Such as DDT, PCBs, what is that? Chlordane, which are banned substances known to cause cancer, neurological disorders, and reproductive issues. The next item, cancer rates. The lower RGV has a higher cervical cancer incidence, 12.4 per 100,000, that is high compared to South Texas as a whole. cervical cancer incidence and mortality rates approximately 55% higher in the RGV along the Texas-Mexico border compared to the average rate in the U.S. That is freaking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Childhood leukemia, respiratory diseases, birth defects, not to mention, structural problems, flooding with infrastructure vulnerabilities, and just the effects to the environment and the ecology.
Yeah, and also to add on to what we're talking about, more crap is that the water Mexico owes us, the treaty from 1944, they've owed us water for many years. Well, we're going to get that water. I think they said it was about 350,000 acres of water that we're going to get in the next year or something like that. Well, those rivers that they're going to come from Mexico, I think it's in another post that I posted. Those waters also have contaminants in them. They're highly polluted. So when that comes in, it's going to come into the Rio Grande Valley. And not only that, SpaceX right in our backyard. I love SpaceX. I love all that stuff that they're doing. I love that. But they are going to dump 200,000 gallons of treated wastewater into the Rio Grande Valley on that side, over there in Cameron County, a day. So you think about what you're going to see in the future is South Padre Island, because everything goes out and pushes out into South Padre Island.
Yeah.
This Padre Island that we know today isn't going to be the same in 20 years if all this stuff keeps on flowing out from here into the ocean, Gulf of America now.
That is crazy. I mean, I'm at a loss. I had no idea it was that. I'll be honest. I had no idea that it was toxic like that.
Yeah, neither did I. And when I started seeing it, it's because it's one of those things. Like my grandfather grew up fishing the arroyo, and he's 95. So when I tell people like, well, he survived, he's doing well. I mean, he's had his problems with health, right? But the scientist that I interviewed, he explained it to me well. It's like he made it. He's one of the ones that made it to 95, and he's good. But everyone else that fishes in there or eats something from there, they're playing Russian roulette.
That is freaking crazy. And then now you think about every single time that it's flooded.
Yeah.
And like I just mentioned, I keep thinking about kids that go out and play in their window. Hey, it's fun. It's water. It's it's like a pool in front of the house, in the house perhaps.
Yeah.
And just everything is getting absorbed.
Which is the case for most people, because like I said, 85,000 homes and 300 schools are directly within the floodplain of the Rio Grande Valley, and they will get flooded.
Man, that's mind blowing. Yeah, please. So where are you likely to release this? Where is this likely to be released? Anywhere here in the valley, or
Yeah.
is it be further?
I believe it's in San Benito at the what is it? I know I have a showing in San Benito on May 24th. It's at the Conjunto Museum. So there in San Benito is a Conjunto Museum, and they're going to allow me to show the documentary there as a private screening.
Okay, I see that.
That'll be the first showing.
All right. Well, definitely give me that information. I will post that. People are very interested to hear about this. Very eager to go and see the film. The information you provided is
a lot, right?
Oof, man. I mean, a lot, and it's truly shocking. I think once the word gets around to this.
Yeah, and it's not
we're going to say, why are we just hearing about this? Why didn't we know about this before?
I mean, it's not my intention to put fear into people, right? It's just, I think.
No, screw that, man. People need to be scared to do something about this, and to be concerned. That you have to be scared.
Yeah, I think that the people have a right to know. They need to be aware of what they're living in, what they're living around, what it is really truly like the Arroyo and the Rio Grande River. Because you just assume it's like a river. Hey, let's go hang out. Let's go fish, whatever, drink beer. take our kids, splash in there. But that's not the case, unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. I am so glad that you decided to make a film about this, and I'm going to make it a point to be very interested and very involved in spreading the word, because this is a legacy issue. This is going to affect not only your kids, but your kids' kids potentially. And
Yeah.
I
I,
mean,
the correct word is it's a human rights violation. Like I don't say that lightly. Like it's for me to say that, like that would never come out of my mouth. Like I'm not gonna human rights violation, but everybody in the valley deserves to know what's out there. Like
yeah,
what's in the air, what's in the water. Like they deserve to know, because my family lives here, my parents live here, and I know somebody that knows somebody, or somebody in your family, or somebody in my family that has had cancer.
right.
And why are so many people sick?
Yeah.
It's mind boggling to me.
Do you have anything else you're working on? Anything else you want to work on that you've got maybe planned up for coming up?
No. This is taking my time, my top priority, because like I said, I do work with a nonprofit. We do help a lot of people in the Rio Grande Valley. But when I started learning about this took priority, because if there's people that are dying and people that are incapacitated that we can't help through the nonprofit, well, what's the point? So a lot of the things I started doing in my life are more are long-term goals that I have, that are more I guess how would you say, not faith-based, but more like I want to have an impact
Yeah.
on people I'm around. So the things that I'm choosing to do now is I'm not making films about certain things. I'm making things that will have an impact on the people that I care about, on the areas that I care about, because because I can do them. I know how to do them. I know how to do them well, and I know how to portray the story and
Yeah.
speak to people, set up these podcasts to get the word out. And then with your help, you'll be able to spread it to your audience. And I think that's important, because like I said, my hat's off to you, because being a local podcaster, you get to the audience that I cannot reach. And I think
Yeah,
that's
and I thank you for making this film and for doing what you do. I mean, that's not easy either. And
I think the film is secondary at this point. Like it's not going to come out till September, right? So I think just talking about it from now until then, and everything that's in the water, like
Yeah.
what we've seen in the studies. Like this is not my stuff. These are literally studies that are done.
yeah,
I'm just putting it together and putting it out there. Like people need to share this stuff, because the documentary is secondary at this point,
yeah.
because it's going to come out for so long. But
Well, I mean, that may be true, but still, at least you're doing it. You know, somebody's doing it, and sometimes this is an easy vehicle for people to start to learn about this. You know, watch this movie.
Yeah.
I've watched some documentaries that freaking blew my mind about food and stuff. It's like you can't eat anything. I found out, you know, at the end of the film, it's like, what the hell can I eat? They can't eat nothing.
nothing.
And but no, I do thank you for that. And you know, you have my assistance whenever you need it. I'll be definitely want to keep track of this and follow it and promote as needed, because I think this is very important. This is not talked about enough. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
This is the first I've heard of all this.
The next step is to get the petition to 1,000 signatures, because with the 1,000 signatures, it'll have enough weight to be able to take it to where it gets officially recognized and can get some media attention. So that is the most important. Every day I wake up, I'm messaging people like to do this. I don't do those. Like I'm not one to bother people. I hate asking people for help. But I see that this is like people are messaging me every day. Like they're saying that their kid died, or their mother has cancer, or their family member has cancer, and they're asking why. Like I don't know. I'm putting it together from the research that I'm putting out, and I'm just a guy that's doing a documentary that stumbled upon this information, that started putting it together, and it logically makes sense.
Yeah. Joshua, thank you for enlightening us. Looks like you are doing some great things, and I hope you continue to have success and make some good pictures.
Thank you.
And I think this is important. Thank you for bringing this to light, and I will do what I can to promote. Everybody go to those links. I've got them on my Manny Behind the Mic page on Facebook and on my personal page. The links are there. Sign the petition. Share that. Get that signed. Let's make this thing happen and try to do what we can to start to make our world safe.
Absolutely.
Joshua, hey, thanks for your time. I appreciate you coming by here, and you're welcome anytime. You got something to promote, you just let me know, and we will gladly have you on.
Awesome. I appreciate that, man.
Sir, have a good night. We'll be in touch. I'll be in touch with you tonight.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Joshua Moroles, everybody. And wasn't something. I mean, just to think how many of these, I'll call them resources. You go fishing, you go stand or in a river, in a lake, rainwater. We have the floods. To most people, this is horrible. Flooding for adults, it's a big problem, and obviously it disrupts our lives. But children don't have that concept yet, so they go out and they play in the rain, they play in the water, they play in the flooded front yard, in the flooded street. Water gets into the fields, into the fruit and vegetables that we eat, into the bodies of the cattle and the cows and the creatures that eat from the earth, and everything gets contaminated. It's just everything gets contaminated. Even the water that you shower in will be contaminated. And I know he said he's not trying to scare anybody, not trying to make anybody move out, but you know what? It's okay to scare people. Maybe it'll scare people into doing something about it and acting on this. And you can do your part by sharing. You can sign that petition. Again, I've got it on my page, on both of my pages. Sign the petition, pass it along. I'll keep promoting this, and I'll be in touch whenever Joshua's got more stuff for us to share with us. Thank you so much for that. Thank you all for being here. And like I said, I'll keep saying it. Please share the video. This was very important. Not only about the film itself, but about the topic of the film. It's like, holy crap, this is a problem. This is a real problem. So now I bet when you go out, you go to the lake or you go to the fishing at the recycle, wherever you're going to go fishing now, you're going to think about, damn, do I want to eat that fish? Do I want to dip my feet in that water? Do I want to let my kids play in there? You got to think about that. You really do. Sign the petition, pass it along. Thank you all. Have a good night. Be back tonight. I'll let you know. Good night, everybody.